righty, guys. Spencer G here from Slaughterhouse Sports. This is one of the biggest moves in college football in the past 3 or 4 years. And this is amazing. I'm so happy that this is happening. I've been waiting for Scott Frost to get back in the football ever since he was let go against Georgia Southern. I think he took his time and did the right thing by waiting a year. I thought that he would be on TV or would be more present. The guy has gone completely off of the grid. Like Scott Frost went off of the grid for about a year and a half. For about 2 years, nobody had heard about him. And then he expressed an interest to get back into coaching. And then very quietly, he joined as an assistant this year to the Rams. After 2 years, he joined like midsummer as an assistant to the LA Rams. Just an assistant. Man, oh man, it's emotional to get Scott Frost. It's emotional to get Frost back in college football, back in football in general, to see him get another opportunity. Because after Nebraska, it would have been easy to just fade into the sunset. And that's what you thought was happening with Frost, or you thought that he would just be an offensive analyst, and then maybe he would call plays, and this path would take him like another decade to get back. That's why it's rare for somebody to be given this opportunity, and that's why I'm just so happy that it happened again. And I really want it to work. All right, because Scott Frost could tell he loved Nebraska. He loved coming home near Wood River, Nebraska. And I was so excited when Frost decided to come to Nebraska. And this guy is tough. He played in an era where he was a quarterback who had to run the ball and guys really got hit hard. He came from the 90s Huskers. He came from the glory days, and he instilled kind of that toughness in the defense, and he tries to instill it in some of his players. He has a loyalty, which is could be at times, a lot of times, could even hinder Scott Frost, is his loyalty to Adrian Martinez, because he felt what Adrian was going through when he was a player. I mean, he was at Nebraska. He had to transfer to Stanford, like somehow came back to the state of Nebraska after being an outcast there. So he has one of the most wild stories. And you talk about Disneyland right there, that it's in Orlando, right near UCF. And this is kind of like the Disneyland story. I mean, Scott Frost led UCF to the big show, led him to an undefeated season. They won the Peach Bowl. They won every single game. They had Mackenzie Milton. They had such talent on the offensive side. And then he went out to Nebraska, and he was the hottest coach in all of college football. Florida wanted him. Tennessee was interested in Scott Frost, and then he went to Nebraska. Everyone, including myself, thought that it would be perfect. He knows the region well. He'll bring some offense there. And it didn't work out. And I'll tell you the reasons it didn't work out. Terrible red zone efficiency. Terrible. Quarterback with Adrian, just the receivers, he didn't get a good wide receiver until he got Trey Palmer. He wasn't able to recruit receiver to Nebraska. The offense was not explosive enough. The offense was a problem. The defense was good, but the defense was not explosive either. So at UCF, he had all sorts of explosive plays, and that's because the competition led to high scores. At Nebraska, when they get when you're kind of more stuck in the mud and you got to play these games in the teens, and it's very cold and it's hard to throw the football around, and it's hard to run zone running game when your offensive linemen get blown up. So Scott Frost couldn't develop trenches. He had an identity crisis at Nebraska. Really, I think that if he was going to do that system at Nebraska, he needed more quarterback competition. And just the structure at Nebraska, the job just got to Scott by the last couple of years. Mentally, he was starting to check out of the job. And the pressure of the fishbowl was just affecting his enjoyment, what seemed like, of coaching. Did not seem outgoing anymore. Just strange. Like a Big Ten media day, he had no opening statement. the close losses just with Scott Frost, he's just like, this is the same movie over and over again. He just thought that the football gods were against him. And I wish that Scott Frost, going back, would have just said, you know what, we just got to do the simple things better, and we got to start blowing teams out, have that mindset to blow teams out. But at UCF now, could this work at UCF? So the first time it worked, but the first time it was in the American Athletic Conference. And that was a big reason why Scott had so much success. So because I like Scott Frost a lot, I want to see this work out personally because he has so many doubters. And at Nebraska, the way that he left, it was ugly the way eventually when he left. People wanted him gone from year 4, and then the minute the onside kick happened, and they were still not quitting on Scott even when they went 3-9. And that's why people joke a little bit sarcastically, but it is kind of true. It was crazy that team played against Michigan, played against Michigan State, played against all these teams, and were so close. They weren't getting blown out at all. Nobody quit on Scott Frost. Nobody quit on Shenander in that team. So really why Scott succeeded in the first place, though, was in the American Conference, his offense was elite. It was electric, and they were putting up 60 points a game. They were lighting up the scoreboard and outscoring people. And then at Nebraska, he wasn't able to recruit at all to that. And then the defense is so much better in the Big Ten. He wasn't able to figure out the Big Ten and defenses at all. All right. And he only had an offense that is, go, go, go. I'm going to run a lot of motions. We're going to do some air raid, but then we're going to do a lot of outside zone. We're going to crease you in the corners and win with speed. Didn't really know about power or pro style offense. And that's why going with McVay, I like now, could you ever see a team of Scott, get under center and have that versatility to kick your ass in the running game? That's where Scott's iteration, that's where the next level of Scott, if there ever is a next level of Frost, it's instead of, airing it out and instead of just creasing you to the corners, if we need to go in between the tackles and get real physical and go and go ISO and go power right, power left, right in the A and the B gap, Frost teams have never been able to run the football consistently. Never had a back in Nebraska that's able to do it. And that wins you games. When you're able to run and get first downs and kneel out the ball and win with clock, that's what wins you games. And that's why he was never able to close out a game, because he put Adrian in these situations, and Adrian couldn't take care of the ball at all. Had the explosive play nature, but not a quarterback that he never found the pairing with the defense. So there's worries about Frost. The Big 12 has very, very good defenses. Scott didn't recruit well towards the end of his tenure at Nebraska, but I think that he might have been burned out. And I think that I think offensively he is very, very bright. I really do. I think he can get people in space. I think that the calls were there. At times, the players just weren't able to execute at Nebraska, wasn't able to really have that talent at times. At UCF, he's going to be able to recruit better players in terms of the wide receivers. The Big 12 is going to be easier to navigate than the Big 10 is going to be able to be. UCF is likely going to be a place that Scott Frost, if you hired a Jamie Chadwell and those guys did well at UCF, then they're going to want to bounce in 2 years. This is going to be home for Scott, and I think that he was very loyal to people, loyal to his own friends, but I think that now he's going to look towards outsiders. And Scott's felt what it's like to think it was the end, to hit rock bottom. And that last year was rock bottom, 3-9 at Nebraska, not making a bowl game, going back to your home state and being embarrassed to show up in public, being humiliated, dropping out of the job and getting fired. And it just took a toll on Scott, I think personally. And yes, so this is amazing that Scott is back in this light again. It's an incredible story. He's a great character for the game of college football. And I want, like heck, to see Scott Frost succeed here. Because at Nebraska, a lot of people rolled their eyes at Nebraska fans that were like, you're just loyal to Scott Frost. You're just loyal to him because he played at Nebraska. And heck yeah. You're going to be. He's a star. He's awesome. He brought Nebraska national titles. He's one of our own. Yeah. Why is that a problem? And then when they went 3-9 and Trev Alberts came in and replaced Bill Moose, they were so close in those games. And then the people that hated on Scott like kind of got the last laugh like when he left and kind of like laughed at him out the door. And I don't think a lot of people felt sympathy for Frost in the way that he couldn't show his face for like a year or 2 years, like just the toll it took on Frost. And his dad was sick. And I just think it would be incredible. Like at Nebraska, he flames out. You know, he comes back to this place at UCF that he kind of saw and thought that it would just be the pit stop for him. But then he's like, you know what? This was really the spot the whole time. And if he finds this fountain of youth again and this thing explodes and he's only 50 years old, gosh, it can be so exciting. The real storybook would be if he ever went back to Nebraska. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I don't even think that's a good idea. But to have him back in the game again is so cool because so many guys would have just been so worn out. They wouldn't have had the mental strength to even get back into coaching. But now I hope he's like, I love these kids. I'm less about myself and my personal ambitions. I've been humbled. He came into Nebraska with swag and confidence, like so many would have. And then he had to take a step back and figure out why didn't it work. And the reasons outlined in this video were offensively, defensively keeping the same scheme, real struggles with trench play, not allocating the resources to special teams, very sloppy play, poor recruiting. I think recruiting will be better. I think the trench play is not as important at UCF because you're going to be playing teams that are more air raid centric. I know it's still a physical league. You got Iowa State, you got Kansas State, you got Brigham Young, right? Oklahoma State's going to try to run it. I guess maybe that comment is not going to age that well. But you could still go to Baylor and TCU and Tech, and I still see games being played in the 50s. It's still more wide open than Big Ten country, than Illinois, than Wisconsin, than Purdue, Indiana. Even I guess Indiana's starting to become wide open, but Michigan, like you're not going to see defenses like Michigan, Ohio State in the Big 12 just yet. And that's why Scott can succeed. And again, he knows the area, knows the region, love the hire. I'm so happy he's back in the sport. So damn happy. And he had success. So it's the AD going out on a limb, and it's a risky hire, and some won't like it because some are like he doesn't deserve the opportunity after failing at Nebraska. I love redemption stories. Love them. And I'm so pumped up that Scott is back. So pumped up. And I want him to stick it to some of the Nebraska fans that were honestly just rooting for him to fail. And we're making fun of him for going back to Nebraska and mocking the end of Frost. And I want, because if he wins, people think that he's terrible. People think that he's been exposed. People think that he's not a good coach. People think he's only right for this lower level, that he can't win at the Power 4 level. And Scott's got so much to prove. It's similar to the story of Bo Nix when Bo Nix was bad at Auburn, his dream spot, and then he went out to Oregon and succeeded and shut up the haters. And can Scott do that again at UCF in Orlando? Can he get back? Can the swagger get back? Can Scott get back? I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, but I'm willing to say that there is a chance. I'll give this higher. Again, it's tough because I'm biased in this case. Like, I love the story. I'm all in about this story. So I want it to work. Give this a B+ higher or a B higher. Want to give it an A, but it can fail because the Big 12 is a physical league and Scott has areas to work on. Got to be more even-tempered in some ways. Got to recruit harder. Got to look for speed and talent, be more decisive, be a little bit more cutthroat. I know it's too nice of a guy sometimes. You know, when quarterbacks make mistakes like Adrian, sorry, man, like we're going to have to let you, you know, you're going to have to play better. You're going to have to be benched. If your friend isn't getting it done and he's an assistant coach, like, gosh, I'm so sorry, but he's got to be like that at UCF. Tell me what you guys think about this. This is wild. This is the cool story. Redemption time, Scott Frost.